Right now, let's just be clear. Smoltz, Biggio, Pedro, Randy Johnson, and we are waiting to see if that's it, if Mike Piazza gets in or not. I'm sorry, my producer is saying to me what? Go ahead, Gerard.
That is it.
That is it. Just those four guys. So that is it. So once again, let's get right to it because nothing outrages Met fans more than this. Mike Piazza does not make it. I don't know what the percentage of the tally is yet.
That's the key to see if you move forward again and how much, because I think it's important he makes some move this year. And if it was a small move, then really next year I think it becomes crucial for him because you won't have as many heavyweights on the ballot.
What do you think?
I would agree with that. I have a feeling that Piazza probably made significant movement this year, but if he didn't, then I think, because if he did, then he's in easily next year, in my opinion. Ken Griffey Jr. is the only major guy coming on the ballot next year. So, but if he didn't, then next year becomes a little questionable whether or not he can make up that extra.
And even beyond, maybe even beyond. If he doesn't make much of a move, I mean, next year I think he's got to make a big move. Otherwise, it seems like maybe some people are going to draw a harder line than I thought they would. Well,
but you pointed out an excellent column today. Barry Larkin was a guy who made a similar jump to what Piazza would have had to have made this year. But you also pointed out that Larkin's year he got in would be more similar to next year for Piazza because the deck is sort of cleared other than Griffey Jr.
Well, yeah. In Larkin's case, the following year, the year he got in, he was clearly the best player on that ballot. The ballot was not a strong ballot. Next year, Ken Griffey Jr. will clearly be the best player on that ballot. And then after that, Piazza, you know, if you just go by the stats, he's a 1A on that ballot as far as, you know, being the best player on it.
And we were just told 69.9% for Piazza, which, by the way, tells you a couple things. First of all of these data services that we were reading about in the days leading up saying he was getting just over 75%. You know, they're trying to calculate it, figuring out whatever ballots were released. You have to take that with a grain of salt until you see the final number. It's never that simple.
The unpublished ones are a lot of times the ones that aren't voting for Piazza in this case.
Right. Well, you brought up the point, especially the unpublished ones might be a section of voters who don't want they don't want it public, and therefore would be leaning more towards the old school ways.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that, I mean, you know, they only had something like 40% of the ballots that were public anyway, you know, going into the announcement today. So, you know, we got a little bit of a picture, but not the full picture, and you know, but still, I mean, 69% is a pretty good leap for Piazza, and I mean, you know, he's probably disappointed that he didn't get in, obviously, but he's got to be happy in terms of, you know, going forward. You know, as Bill was saying, Griffey's the only slam dunk next year. There's a huge traffic jam on the ballot right now, and you know, he moved up anyway, and I think he's going in next year.
So 7% jump. You think he makes it next year?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a pretty big jump, especially because it's just kind of to me, it's a strange phenomenon that some guys will only vote for a few guys every year, and then they'll change their vote according to who's available and who's not available. So I think this year there's only going to be a certain amount of people that are going to vote for Pedro, the obvious guys that got in. They're not going to vote for anybody else. And next year they'll look at it differently, and I think they will vote for Piazza.
Well, I thought he was, I'll be honest with you, I thought he was going to make it over 70. 69 it's a nice, he got, what, 7 out of the 13% he needed. So I think he probably easily gets that additional 6% to put him over 75. And again, he'll look much better on next year's ballot because people will not be concentrating solely on Pedro and Randy and Smoltz, the new guys on the ballot. The only new guy on the ballot that people will be looking, you know, hands are up automatically is going to be Ken Griffey, and then after that,
Trevor Hoffman.
You know, I don't see Trevor Hoffman making it the first time. Relief pitchers are tough.
Yeah.
Right. You know what? Here's the percentages. We have them now. Randy Johnson, 97.3%. Pedro, slightly over 91%. Biggio, over 82%. And Smoltz, over 82% as well. So that's how it broke down. Does that? This I always feel like
Pedro. That's a joke. 91. I mean,
I agree, John.
I think he should be right there with Randy Johnson.
Yeah, it's a good point.
What was Randy Johnson?
97.3, and Pedro was around 91%.
So Seaver's safe.
See, well, it's a good point. So Seaver still has the most or the greatest percentage.
Right.
No one's ever been unanimous, even Babe Ruth, or you know anybody. Babe Ruth reincarnated, I should say.
And I have a feeling that the guys that didn't vote for Randy Johnson or Pedro are not going to be revealing their ballots.
Well, that's interesting. I always find that to be interesting, how there's never a unanimous vote, but we know people say there's never been in the past, so we're not going to do it this time around. But, you know, you do wonder, here it is right there. So Pedro, 91.1, Smoltz, 82.9, Biggio, 82.7. And then Piazza, as we mentioned, does not get in at 69.9. His threshold, of course, is 75%.